Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here on Nantucket. If you haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. My day job, I'm an elder law attorney at Myrick O'Connell. As most of you know, this is not my day job. This is about my friends, and it's not about me, it's about my friends Frank and Mary and their goal of life, which is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if that's on Nantucket, that means right here. They don't want to leave. Nobody here ever seems to want to leave. Now, as you know, my wonderful co-host here, Allison Forsgren, I suckered her into doing this because she seems to know everybody on Nantucket, so she ends up getting these great guests, you know. But today I actually brought one with me. I talked to Allison about the fact that I work very closely on Martha's Vineyard with a woman who is also my co-host in Martha's Vineyard named Sandie Corr-Dolby. And she is the Geriatric Care manager, and she has her own company. It's called Horizons Geriatrics. But she has been doing this kind of work specifically with seniors like forever, like just forever. And in Martha's Vineyard, on Martha's Vineyard. And so she's been dealing with these kinds of cases forever. And she's been doing a lot of that over the last several months with folks just like you on the other island. And so I thought, and Allison and I talked about this, that it would be worthwhile to have her share how that's all worked out over there, and what the issues have been, you know, how folks have dealt with this over the last, it's now like 6 months since March when all this stuff happened, and how they're dealing with it now, and what their kind of needs are and concerns, and how things are going to, you know, work there looking forward. So that maybe, you know, we may be able to derive some sense of, first of all, we're all in this together, and even on the other island, they're having similar kinds of problems and issues, and maybe you can get from this some sense of how we can continue to make things better. So Allison, thank you very much once again for coming, and Sandie, thank you for coming over. I know this was the nice thing about Zoom, is I know that I had talked to you about doing a show in Nantucket, but it was always too far away. But now suddenly, you know, everything's closer. So
suddenly, well, I've got a quick question for Sandie. Generally, Arthur asks our guests how they got on Nantucket, or what are they doing here, or are they a wash ashore? So I'm curious about your relationship with the Vineyard and how you got started in your business there.
Thanks, Allison. I'd love to tell you that. Officially, by Vineyard standards, I am a wash ashore. Despite the fact that my children are fourth-generation vineyarders, I myself was born not on the vineyard, just outside of Boston. I have a great Nantucket, actually, or a great love for Nantucket, I should say. I was part of a team that helped open the newer VNA over there many years ago when we were Vineyard Nursing Association. We went to Nantucket, and I spent 2 or 3 years on Nantucket several days a week and lived at Sherburne Commons, and I just love Nantucket. So I'm really super excited to be part of the show today.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, because we do like to know what works and what doesn't work in communities like ours. And I think the Vineyard, we can compare to us a little bit. So do share.
Share. So you're just
well, there's a lot of topics, right, Arthur? There's a lot of topics that we can talk about, is what's happening with people, you know, that are super isolated and not able to have visit with them, what's happening with people just sort of getting access to the things that they need. So maybe we could talk about what's of most interest to all of you about which area, because a lot of areas are being affected.
Well, tell me about how you're dealing with the your senior center. How are you keeping your seniors active, and what programs are you able to run, and what do you see as the future for that?
You know, that's a really important one too, because what I have seen is some of our patients that utilize what we call the supportive day program, which is our day program island-wide, that had to stop like everybody else's did. And we are doing some of that through Zoom. They're doing an amazing job trying to keep the elders that were part of that program involved through Zoom meetings, which obviously at that age level and that ability level takes a lot of support for them at home to Zoom in. But they're doing a great job for those that can participate. But that's a huge piece, Allison, is I'm seeing a lot of deterioration in our dementia patients who just don't have that connection anymore because they can't go and be with their friends and the staff at the support center. So I agree that is a huge problem for us. Our elders are really deteriorating in their cognitive abilities because they don't have that stimulation any longer.
And
And
Allison,
so,
I think that, didn't you actually visit that program, the Center for Living program, a while ago?
no, I
That's
never made it over.
Oh, you didn't? That's right. We had talked about going over
Yep,
because
never made it over.
it's a wonderful, because it's island wide. You know, a program just it's kind of like a day program for folks who have got learning issues, right?
Well, we of course don't have a program like that here. But I was wondering about just your senior centers. I mean, do you have as many senior centers as you do towns over there, or elder services, programs?
Yeah,
What exactly do you
pretty
have over there?
close. Pretty close. We've got like five, I think it is five senior centers serving our 6 towns. And I think they're doing great outreach. They're making lots of phone calls. They're arranging for soup to be delivered. They're helping people with shopping, but they're hands off. No one's going to the senior center. Most of the senior center staff are not visiting people in their homes that I'm aware of. Again, they're partnering with all of the other resources on the island, trying to do everything that they can to support seniors in their homes, but from afar, from a distance.
And Allison, actually, regarding at one of the senior centers where I do a lot of my presentations, the one in Vineyard Haven in Tisbury, the senior center director is actually going to be starting to come on to our shows, our Martha's Vineyard shows, to kind of do a monthly update, just to kind of keep people in touch with what's kind of going on at the senior center. And I've talked to Laura Stewart at the Salt Marsh. We're actually going to do a kind of a similar thing as an intro to one of the seminars that I'm doing, and that's going to be up on NCTV, just so that she can do kind of a monthly update. Because I think a lot of people are just missing a lot of that stuff, and they don't know what's coming and they can't get in. And so that part's a real challenge.
Yes, it is.
And Sandie, can you talk a little to that issue of the kind of that sense of isolation that people are feeling now, and how they're dealing with that, and how you folks are dealing with that? I mean, I know that you do a lot of outreach to a lot of this community, and that especially with folks who have got memory issues. I know that you deal with a lot of those folks.
We've had to increase the home care services for a lot of our elders that are at home that would have either been going out to programs, whether it was the senior center for lunch, or having the senior center shopper come and take them. There's a couple of our senior centers actually have shoppers that will take the elder with them to the grocery store. And that's not happening right now. They're still getting their groceries via the shopper, but they aren't able to go with them. So there is a tremendous amount of isolation. So what we've had to do is to use some of the resources that we have available, which are scant, to bring more services into the home through caregivers. Elder Services is doing everything that they can to enhance the care at home that people are getting. But again, the resources here on the Vineyard, actually, what I'm remembering, at least, Allison, is we have far less resources, believe it or not, given our bigger size, in caregivers available to go into the home than Nantucket did, at least at the time that I was working a lot there. We're very limited. So with family members not being here a lot, I mean, some of our elders have family members from Colorado, Florida, New York, wherever. And while some of them just came and moved in back in March or April, and they're working from home anyway, so they're able to work from home at mom's house here on the Vineyard, some of them had kids, or they just simply weren't able to do that. So they weren't able to provide to their loved ones the support that they typically got. And so we've had to go to our private sector and to some of our agencies, including Elder Services here, to try to meet that need. And some of our seniors, Arthur, are just not, they're having to make do with a phone call rather than having people in and out of the house. And this is why we're seeing our elders really declining in their cognitive abilities.
And I just wanted to follow up. I know that you and I have had a conversation about the fact that, ironically, though, you're getting called a lot by doctors now because of the virtual appointments, right? Because of people who were going to the doctor's office. And you know, we always try to encourage seniors, if you're going to the doctor's office, take someone with you, so you know what so you know what the doctor's saying, you know, so you get somebody that can kind of translate. But now it's even worse because a lot of those visits are Zoom visits, and it's bad enough that you're trying to talk to the doctor, you know, over Zoom, but even to get to make you work the Zoom thing, you know, you might have a lot of problem with that. I mean, I still have problems, and I'm doing this a lot. So can you just kind of talk about how folks are adjusting to that?
Absolutely. So Horizons, my company, I'm a geriatric case manager here on the Vineyard, and in our company, we have a large amount of folks on the Vineyard that use our services prior to COVID. But now with COVID, we've had lots and lots of new inquiries. And part of that is because folks that need to see their physician frequently, every month or more, are doing it via Zoom. They can do it via phone call, but as we all know, to be able to look at somebody and see how they look and how their body language is when they're being asked questions is really important. So we're getting a lot of referrals, and we're helping a lot of our existing clients Zoom with their doctors, and having one of our staff members there has been incredibly helpful because, you know, as a nurse, I can take vital signs that the doctor would not have normally gotten on that Zoom call, but also I can help the client connect. And in this age group, not all of them, although more nowadays than ever before, are as computer savvy, and especially through Gateway. It can be difficult through Gateway for them to figure out how to get on the Zoom calls. So we are doing a lot of Zooming with our doctors and family members. That's how we're keeping our elders connected to their family members, is we're just showing up with a computer or an iPad and Zooming in so that they can see each other and have a conversation. The doctors are finding the visits that we're helping with so much more informative. We can take the camera and point it at the angle so that the doctor can see the level of swelling that an elder may have in their ankle, or how a wound is doing, or just, you know, somebody's body mechanics. How far can you reach that shoulder that we just operated on a few months ago? What's your range of motion like on your own? So we've been able to make those visits a lot more meaningful. And the elders are really enjoying them. They're really connecting with their doctors in a little bit more relaxed atmosphere. It's really kind of fun.
By the way, I've noticed every once in a while you cut out, right? And so I want to make the folks that are at Nantucket appreciate the fact the other island has the same internet problems that Martha's Vineyard has, or excuse me, that Nantucket has, right? That there are a lot of places where the reception's just terrible, and that's one of the challenges, but still one of the fun things of living on the island. So, you know, Allison, have you found from talking to folks, you know, on Nantucket that they're experiencing these kinds of issues, especially in terms of just dealing with their medical providers, or does that conversation come up at all? I'm just curious, because I can understand.
I'm not actively caregiving for anybody right now. Myself, and there's very little when it comes to communication outside the caregiving circle. I mean, I don't get to the island home to check in there at all. So I'm only assuming. We had just started our memory cafe before COVID hit, and we were, you know, gathering a group of new people to start that. And I only know that the families that were going to be involved, I know nothing about, because there's really no organization. I mean, we do have one geriatric care manager, Erin Kopecki, and I'm, last time I heard, she was very busy. So I'm just guessing that there probably is a need for some more care here.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I was just curious because I think that's been a piece of this whole 6 months, is that there's been so little communication among folks. Because that's right, your memory cafe was just going to start, and the Center for Living in the Vineyard, actually one day a week they had been running a memory cafe, but once again that is all now on Zoom. And they try to make it work, but everything is, everybody's trying to make it work. And, you're all, I guess the only kind of positive of this is that it is now 6 months in. And I remember when I was having conversations with both of you and with a lot of people back in March and April, and you just, everybody was like, are we all going to die? Is this going to be this? It was just, and no one knew what was going to happen. But now we've had this kind of while to adjust to it, so that a lot of folks have kind of adjusted. So Sandie, do you have a sense of going forward? Are you imagining that things are now kind of just going to stay the way they are until this vaccine shows up? Are you thinking that other things are going to be happening? And for the many folks that you see, how is their situation changing? Is it getting any better? Is it continuing to get worse?
I think that we're learning what some of the effects are that we weren't aware of before. One of the effects that we haven't talked about yet is elders that are driving and are reasonably independent we're finding out they're doing things like taking medication every other day. So they don't have to go to the pharmacy as often because they're nervous about being out in the community. I also have elders that are hoarding food, or we're noticing a weight loss, and it's because elders are eating far less because they don't want to have to go to the grocery store. So what I see going forward is we're figuring this out, and it took us a little while to figure out that some weren't quite as open to what their tricks were until we noticed a weight loss, or until a blood pressure was out of control that typically was managed well, and we found out that swollen ankles were happening and blood pressures were high because folks weren't taking their medications every day, and here's why. And then the problem with the post office didn't help. So post office and mail being as delayed as it is now, those that get their medications through mail order are in trouble as well. So one of the things going forward is we're figuring this out. So now we know the questions to ask. When we go in and we visit an elder or we talk to them on the phone, however, we ask them those specific questions is how's that going? If you're not going to the dump anymore, or your husband isn't, is trash piling up around the house, and do we need to help get rid of that? So now we're figuring out 6 months in, and some of it just takes a while to flush out. Where are the problems, and what are people doing that we have to help support them around doing in a different so that they can be safer at home? And I do think our supportive day program is talking about reopening on a limited basis. And Arthur, you might actually be able to speak to that better than I can, but from what I'm hearing, they are talking about opening a few days a week with fewer elders attending, and maybe splitting up half days instead of whole days, to get as many people served as possible. So I think we may see some hybrids coming out to try to get some of the elders back connected again. And in the meantime, those of us in home care and elder services and councils on aging and whatnot are reaching out, and now we're learning those questions to ask people. Are you taking your medication every day? Are you having any trouble getting it? People just don't realize the pharmacies here will deliver if you let them know that you need them to.
That's handy. That's handy to know, because I would guess that one of the issues going into the winter is just that transportation is going to become more of an issue. So for people who are even trying to get out more now, it's just going to be more difficult for them to do it.
We are, and also one of the other things that we're seeing is a lot of folks that had 2 or 3 different people coming into the house over a day for a couple hours and here and there. What we're seeing also is they're moving more towards one permanent person. So I've seen a lot of change in people that were getting significant amount of hours throughout a day, but not a live-in permanent person, have now moved towards that because it keeps down the amount of people coming in and out of the house, and it makes them feel safer to just have one person. So lots of changes, and we could go on for hours on all the different changes that we've seen.
Have you had many people who just now will just refuse to have anybody else in the house because
Absolutely.
They're concerned about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really worried about them, because if we had people going in and out of the house, or elder services did quite frequently, now they're not comfortable having anybody come in. They're sort of swimming on their own. And again, these are the people that are hoarding, food and not eating enough and not taking their medications properly. And the dog is not doing well because the dog food ran out and they don't want to go out and get that. And it's not easy.
Right. That's another piece with the lack of Meals on Wheels and stuff, that you don't have a set of people who are kind of on a regular basis every week just stopping by.
No, our Meals on Wheels is moving. Our Meals on Wheels is going. And in fact, I think on the Vineyard, they've seen, quite an uptick in referrals to Meals on Wheels because of these problems I'm talking to you about.
That's really good. That's really good. So Allison, any other questions?
I'm just wondering, how many clients do you serve through your business? What is it a pretty steady rate, or is there room for more, or?
We have, at the moment, we're serving about 165 families on Martha's Vineyard. That's up about 30 from what we would normally be right now. And a lot of that, excuse me, is probably the same thing you're seeing, is once families get to the Vineyard, our seasonal folks are not leaving. My company was not typically a seasonal company. Families came together with their elder parents and stayed on the Vineyard. And what we're seeing now is, and then they would go home and the elder would go back to their apartment or whatever and have their services in Florida or New York or wherever. Now they're staying. And some of the adult children are leaving, but the elders are staying because this is a safe place. And so we are seeing an uptick in seasonal people that are now becoming, at least for this year, year-rounders.
So Allison, I was just talking, I'm sorry, I was just talking to a client in Nantucket, and she was saying similarly that she was at the Stop and Shop, and there were like all these people there that you normally wouldn't see now because it's past Labor Day. And, it's like they're all staying. And I talked to somebody who had talked about the kind of the increase in the school enrollment, that you've actually got a lot more people there. Are you really noticing that yourself?
Yes, definitely. The Stop and Shop, and it's the license plates pretty much. Things are pretty, the tradesmen and the traffic at certain times of days is pretty consistent with years past, but the other times of day where people are not going to and from work, but just getting around, and the Stop and Shop. I
talked to one lady who was saying she was at the Stop and Shop, and there were these two people talking about how terrific it was to just be staying in Nantucket. And she was like, oh God, I wish they'd go home. It's like, usually by this time, same thing as the Vineyard, by this time in September, the standard line was, you could almost feel the island rising as the population kind of dissipated, and but everybody's like hanging around, and they're like, oh my God, this is going to be terrible.
It was lighter this summer generally. I don't think we had nearly as many day tripping people. And the people that came for the summer, I know a lot of them are, clients are still here and staying through November, December, depending upon what things are like where they live. Because that's the $1 million question. Do you go back to a place that's, doing a much poorer job than here, or are we going to start doing such a poor job that people are going to want to leave? That's another thing.
We'll find out.
Pretty recent uptick in COVID positive cases. Are you seeing that over there, Sandie?
No, we're very lucky. Yeah, I've been reading your paper. I'm so sorry you guys are going through that. We are pretty steady, maybe one case every couple weeks. But we're not experiencing quite the uptick that you are. I'm so sorry you're going through that.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's not unexpected, but still frightening nonetheless. So we want to keep it away from our frail elders and take good care of them. I've got one more question, Sandie, about how are you finding your workers and retaining them? Do you have the same issues with housing and et cetera? Where do you get your staff?
It is really scary. That part is really scary, is the agencies that we rely on through our elder services programs. We have 3 agencies here that provide that, and they are very short-staffed. We've lost some staff through those agencies, folks that were semi-retired and were doing home care as a love, to do in their retirement that have decided that they can no longer, or younger caregivers that can't do it anymore because they're living with an elder parent and they're worried about being in and out of everyone's houses. Our private sector, like yours, is still doing okay because there's a little bit more money there than there is working through the agencies. Right now, getting things done, and part of it is because also some of the college students at Horizons, we use a lot of nursing school students to help us with as caregivers, and since they're working remotely and some of them are not back on campus, I've been able to retain a few to work at least part-time. So we're meeting the need. And again, I did have a significant, on the Vineyard, we did have a significant amount of people getting 6, 8, 10 hours a day of caregivers that are now using a live-in for that instead. So we do have, and the live-in market is super easy. That one is super easy to staff. So that frees up some of those hourly workers. So we're so far squeaking by, but we're pretty lucky. We know that.
All right, thank you.
Allison, thank you. Thank you very much for agreeing to invite Sandie. I know that she's from the other island, and so I thought while she was speaking, maybe they're going to put an X across her face or something. At the
Sure.
NCTV.
I understand.
But we really, and Sandie, we really want to thank you. I think that this input may be really valuable for folks who are once again realizing that there are folks kind of going through a similar experience and maybe giving some ideas regarding other possibilities for what to do here. And I really want to thank the folks, as usual, Dee, White, and all the folks at NCTV for doing this show. So thank you, Allison, and thank you very much, Sandie.
Arthur.
And we'll see you all soon on the next installment of Frank and Mary here on Nantucket. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.